Thanks for coming this afternoon. Some of you were here at the original, the first session here on mergers and acquisitions and market, some of the ways in which you can optimize your company to get the best value in terms of a sale. I'm going to go into some of that again here, but I'm going to mostly focus on a market update, what's going on in the marketplace today in video games and technology. I'll cover a bit of what's going on in technology, but try to really get into video games more specifically. My name is Jim Perkins. I'm Regional Director for the Corum Group. I'm also a digital media specialist. I've been in the video game business for 22 years. I had a number of different companies in the video game business, which I successfully sold to larger companies through the process that I'll tell you a little bit about. I was fortunate enough to be working with very talented teams that developed such games in the early days on CompuServe, called Wolfenstein, Duke Nukem, Unreal, Quake, Doom. Many of those games I was directly involved with and the developers that created those. And ironically, as I mentioned in the last session, a lot of those games were distributed via CompuServe, and they were free to play. And then if you wanted to play more of the game, you bought the game directly from online from us or through mail order. Really, there wasn't a lot of retail then when we were doing those games in the early days. Commander Keen was one of the early games, too, from id Software. Epic Pinfall from Epic, the Unreal guys. I mean, the real retailers weren't there at the time. So it's kind of interesting how we've evolved, where retail seems to be going away, and we're getting more into online games and the distribution of online games. I've actually, as I mentioned before, I've sold a couple of video game companies. I've made acquisitions and investment in the video game world and in other companies. So I have a lot of experience. I know what you guys go through and have to go through when you're preparing your company for a sale and actually going through the negotiation process. So we're, essentially there as people who have gone through this to help you prepare to sell your company and actually go through and sell. We have a lot of industry leaders in the company. This is Nat Burgess, our president of Corum Group. He appears regularly on CNBC in North America and predicts some of the upcoming deals in the marketplace. He actually predicted in January that Microsoft would buy or invest in Barnes & Noble. Everybody thought he was out of his mind. He was right. So that was kind of interesting that actually happened, and he's considered somewhat of a luminary. What I'm going to do today, again, is I'm going to do a little bit more detail on what Corum Group does, but I also want to go into the global tech market and talking about gaming M&A, both here and in North America, valuations, deals, dynamics. I also want to talk about an interesting phenomenon called gambling and gaming. A lot of people, as you know, Zynga have their Zynga poker game. It's going to be an interesting process when we see the legalized gambling happen in China and other places like North America. And a lot of companies are gearing up for that, and I'll talk about that a little later. And then we'll have Q&A. So think of some questions that you may have. You may have some, store them up for the end, and I'll be happy to answer them. One of the things that if you leave your business card with me at the end or you email me, I'm at jimp@corumgroup.com. But if you leave me your business card here at the end of the session, I'll send you our World Tech M&A report, and there is a feature on here on video gaming. And I'll also send you some information on all of the deals that we've done in the past for the past 25, 26 years. We've actually been doing M&A for only the software and tech business since 1985. We only work on the sell side of the business. We represent you, the sellers of companies. We don't represent the buyers of companies, although we know every buyer in the market. We have a database of 135,000 buyers worldwide that are at various times buying companies around the globe. As a matter of fact, we have offices around the world, and the reason we do have offices around the world is because 60% of those transactions, M&A transactions, happen cross-border. More than half of those deals happen between one country and another. and we're experts at handling those types of deals. We've also developed what we call the optimal outcome process, M&A process. There are stages that you go through to sell your company, from the preparation of documents to the identification of buyers, and ultimately the negotiation and contracts for selling your company. We have 5 people working on the sale of your company. It's a team approach. They're all senior people. They involve somebody that has experience like myself in video games and has done this before, to writers, professional writers of executive summaries and financial memorandums and all that work that you shouldn't be doing while you're selling your company. You should be running your business. We should be preparing those materials. We also have research people and people that create buyer lists. Who are those buyers on the list that would be potential people? And they could be 100. There could be 100 companies that are potential buyers of your company. We only actually, as a matter of fact, and part of this is that one of the largest educators in the world of M&A. We run sessions around the world every week, whether it be a half-day boot camp on how to sell your company called Selling Up, Selling Out. And we also run a 90-minute short version of that called the Merge Briefing. I encourage you to attend those. For you that have attended this convention here or this seminar here, you get free entrance to those. And I'll keep you posted on any events that we're having here in Asia in the future. We also have the largest proprietary database of buyers, as I mentioned before, and that really gives us a lot of information as to who your buyers might be, what their buying habits are, what they're looking for in due diligence, what they're paying for in terms of valuation of your company. We've sold more firms than anyone in the world, and more software companies. We're dealing with buyers such as Google and Bosch. We're also doing transborder. We're doing Germany. We've sold a company here in, a few companies actually in here, Singapore. We sold First Apex to NTT Data. We sold a U.S. company to Brother in Japan called Nefsys out of San Diego. And we also have done a number of deals in the video game business, whether it be Activision. We're dealing with Activision, Disney, Microsoft, GT Interactive in its day. That was my transaction, and others. And we have a number of deals going on right now with current buyers in the video game space. Just a bit on what's going on in the software M&A business. These trends follow the trends in the economy. You can see a downturn after 9/11. You can see a bit of a downturn after the stock market meltdown in 2008. But in 2012, we predict about 3,800 M&A transactions in software, worth about $250 billion. Tech M&A is going to remain very strong. There's a lot of things going on between industries. There's a lot of convergence and trends in various industries that make M&A very, very, very active in all industries, in all tech M&A, and especially in the video game industry, whether you've got social, mobile, social, online, MMOs, consolidation in the console business, and so on and so forth. Buyers have a lot of cash. Debt is at no cost, so they can go and get that money and that cash and buy your company for cash. And that's the way most deals are done. There's a cash element in there. Private equity. A lot of companies private equity firms raised money in 2008, 2009, and there's over $500 billion ready to be spent. And they need to spend that money to show some return on investment for the people who invested that money. And there's a lot of public buyers out there. There's also an interest in non-tech buyers. One of the things that I emphasized in the last session is that not necessarily your partners in the video game business or your competitors in the video game business may be buyers of your company. There's a lot of companies that need your technology that maybe not be a part of the video game business. So keep that in mind. Or it could be a buyer overseas that you don't know about in Europe or in Asia or North America that you don't know about. You need to know who they are and what they're buying. For example, American companies right now are very, very cheap, and there's a lot of acquisitions going on. I know GRI has made 2 large acquisitions recently for $100 and $200 million in the U.S. because those are good buys for them. One of the things that I mentioned before, and I'll repeat this, is that M&A is really the primary source of liquidity. I used to think that going public was a good way to create wealth. Well, that's not the case. The most prominent way to create wealth is through M&A, by far. It continues on. That's the way you're going to get a lot of money for your company. Being part of a public company is a very, very tough process. It's very stressful, and it's just better to be acquired. A lot of cash out there, tons of cash out there. Zynga has $2 billion. Mark Pincus has said, I want to go and spend $2 billion making acquisitions. He needs to spend that money, and he's spending it. He bought OMG Pop for $200 million, the guys that made Draw Something. Some of the trends here apply. I'll go through these quickly, but apply that Gartner's come up with apply to the video game business. Media tablets, huge growth in media tablets and huge growth by 2015 in the iOS and Android platforms. Mobile-centric applications, we know this from the video game business. Social, again, video games, video games, video games, big and social. Application stores, and so on. All of these apply to the video game business in a very big way, and Gartner is predicting massive growth in these sectors. Who are the strategic buyers? And I'm going to get into the video game business in a minute, but I just wanted to show you who the strategic buyers out there generally in technology. And these companies are also buying into the video game business, whether it be Google or whether it be Facebook or so on and so forth. But we can see that Google by far was the biggest acquirer of companies in 2011. They made 33 transactions. Interestingly, the third largest was Zynga. They made 13 acquisitions, almost one a month, well, more than one a month in 2011, and they've made, I believe, 6 in 2012 already. So they are on a huge acquisition binge. This information comes from DigiCapital, and it's good information. This shows us that the global video game mergers and acquisition business is stronger than it has ever been. The huge growth, you can see the curve there, the huge growth in M&A in 2011 is really phenomenal. 120 transactions worth about $3.5 billion. All right, let's talk about some gaming trends here. And some of you are, I'm sure, experiencing these, but let's talk about them. And I encourage you to ask questions. You might want to ask them now or think about them for later. If you've got something urgent to ask it while we're on the topic here. We're seeing a massive acceleration in M&A. And really, IPOs are really slowing. I mean, we saw Nexon in Japan, which was Japan's one of, I think it was the largest Japanese IPO last fall. We saw Zynga go public last fall. And that's about it. But the M&A in the industry is really significant. In the traditional video game business, we're seeing the major blockbusters dominate. This year, I see Grand Theft Auto, Max Payne, BioShock being the major players. But if you're in the console business on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, that's a tough business. It's a $100 million per title business, and it's not for the weak of heart. So we're just seeing the major blockbusters emerge, and everything else is just not selling. We're also seeing a major slowdown in retail sales of boxed product. So online sales, downloadable games are clearly dominating in the space. Obviously, smartphone and tablet games are growing. It is by far the highest global growth. Worldwide, every country, every region, tablets and mobile gaming. So I imagine that's most of your focus here, but that is seeing the highest growth. One of the things that we're really watching carefully is monetization of social games. Is it a profitable business? Do you think it is a profitable business? Well, it's questionable. We don't know yet. Zynga's making money, but we're saying we don't know what if those private companies that are in the social game business are making money. You know, how do we monetize those microtransactions? Are they enough? when we sell or give away a game on an iPhone or an Android and expect upsells, are those making money? Well, we've got to watch those very, very carefully. It is a growing business, but we've got to keep a close eye on whether or not there's going to be a profitability shakeout in that business. One of the things that I really do see in gaming is voice recognition. People using their voice to play a game, to talk into the speaker of their mobile device or a tablet or whatever they may be using to play a game, and setting commands and all that. I think that's going to be a major trend in 2012, probably more in 2013, 2014, where there's no real need to use your fingers or your hands to play the game, and you can use voice commands to control what you're doing in some of these casual games. Games M&A, well, it was up 160% in 2011. There was over $3.4 billion done in video game M&A in 2011, almost 2 times what it was in the previous year. 113 transactions, almost double. So you can see a major trend here. A lot of acquirers out there, a lot of companies with cash making those acquisitions. Social games dominated. 45% of all the M&A was done in social games, and I think that'll continue into 2012. And interestingly, MMO value was the M&A value was the second highest, with 30% of the market share in terms of M&A. I think social mobile is next. I think we're going to see a major growth. It was a smaller part of the overall M&A in 2011, but I think it'll become a huge part 2012, 2013. Great place to be if you want to get acquired, if you want to prepare yourself for sale. Is it really too late to get these console giants to make some acquisitions? I haven't seen Activision. I haven't seen, except for EA, I haven't seen a lot of these console giants making acquisitions in social games, mobile games, and so on. Electronic Arts is making a play there, and I think it's admirable that they're doing so, and they've really made a mark on that business. Also, we're seeing non-traditional buyers in this space. IGT is a company based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. They make slot machines. They make slot machines for casinos. Well, they've made 3 acquisitions, and I'll talk about this a little more in detail, but they made 3 acquisitions in the video game space when they bought Double Down and a couple of other companies to really position themselves in video games and in capturing the customer that leaves the casino and goes home and wants to do something at home, wants to play video games or play slot machines or whatever other games, poker, blackjack, at home. We're seeing a lot of M&A, and I've just listed a few of these deals here in Asia. GRI bought OpenFeign and Funzio recently, this year. Both US-based companies. GRI is obviously a Japanese company. They're very aggressive in this space, very aggressive in this space. We made, out of South Korea, made 3 studio acquisitions just this year in South Korea. I didn't know a lot about We Made before, but they are very, very aggressive in this space. Nexon, 4 acquisitions this year in social game studios in South Korea. And NeoWiz, 2011, I think they had 4 acquisitions. They made 4 acquisitions in 2011, both in Japan and South Korea. So a lot of activity here in Asia. Pardon? Tencent hasn't been as active as they were. I'm not aware of some of the deals. You may...
Oh, they just bought it.
Oh,
They're buying a lot of little stuff.
Yeah, little stuff. Yeah. Yeah. We're talking the major deals. But they were very active in 2010. Right. The huge deals. Yeah. So the online games market is really an interesting market. It's a hodgepodge of client MMO, social casual web, casual mobile, social mobile, browser MMOs, and cloud gaming. What does this mean? I mean, what are these guys doing? And there's so many different categories of video gaming going on right now. What does this really mean? Well, it really means a consolidation. A consolidation mania is what I call it, where a lot of competitive and complementary acquisitions and consolidation are going to go on. I think media companies, we're seeing it with IGT. I think Disney and Viacom are going to get into this space in a very big way. Definitely Tencent with some of these smaller acquisitions, Perfect World and Nexon. I think there's going to be consolidation. And these companies are not only going to buy up their competitors, but they're also going to buy, well, they're buying their complementary companies right now, but they're going to get into competitive businesses. They're going to try to move into other sectors, and that's going to create a frenzy of buying, crazy valuations, in order to get them into spaces where they need to compete with other public companies or other private companies that are also getting into the space. There's a huge amount of capital there for them to spend in other spaces. I don't know whether or not the console guys are going to be there, whether ZeniMax and Take-Two and Electronic Arts is definitely there right now, but Take-Two and ZeniMax, I haven't seen a huge movement into online games. They may be the next guys that roll in and offer some huge price for Big Fish or some huge price for some Asian game. But we haven't seen it so far. And honestly, knowing those guys, you know, the cultures may not mix very well. You know, the budgets are different, the studio size are different, the way they sell their products is very different. The speed with which they move in terms of making games and market games is different. Is it a good fit? I don't know. I tend to think not, but we may be surprised. And then obviously we've seen Zynga go crazy. I mean, they are making huge acquisitions. They're buying as many talented studios as they can. If anybody threatens them on the charts with games that will put their games on position 2 or 3 or 4, their tendency is to take them over, and they're going to want that, regardless of revenue. They're going to want that user base. They want that customer base. They want that dominance, because the way they sell their games is through other games. The more customers they have, the more product they sell. I also see Rovio. I love the fact that independent developers have a chance to create something that is a breakout hit, and I think that opportunity is thriving now. Every one of you, as developers, have an opportunity to make that breakout hit and get 5 million, 6 million, 7 million customers. And it doesn't have to be a complex game. It has to be an innovative game, a fun game, something that a lot of people do want to play, and a lot of people may want to play overseas as well. You know, Angry Birds just has that appeal cross-border for everybody. And Draw Something, the same thing. So I really believe, and I know that there's going to be breakout hits like that from guys like you that are going to be up for acquisition. Let's talk a little bit about gambling and games. The interesting thing about gambling is it is a worldwide phenomenon. We've been gambling for a long time. We go to casinos, everybody knows how to play poker, everybody knows how to play blackjack, people know how to roll dice, some people know how to play baccarat, but it is a worldwide commonality among all cultures, is that gambling gene, so to speak. We're looking at the possibility of gambling being legalized in the US and in China, online gambling. It was taken away, people were put in jail. There was literally hundreds of millions of dollars being made in online gambling before it was banned in these countries. And there is a possibility that it's going to come back. The governments just have to figure out how they're going to tax it, how they're going to get their piece of the pie, and how it can be regulated. So what does that mean? Well, it means that people that have 30 million customers playing poker every month, like Zynga, are going to be a dominant factor in online gambling. Okay, and it also means, big fish, again, in buying self-aware. They've got a position in online gambling, albeit casual gambling, not for money. But what happens to these companies? What happens to the valuation of these companies and the value of their products when gambling is legalized in North America or in China? One of the biggest things, when you look at Harrah's or you look at the World Poker Tour, which is a TV show, one of the the biggest phenomena is, Harrah's or Wynn casinos or Bally's, they're all looking at what happens when they leave the casino. A lot of people are like, how do I retain a customer after they leave the casino? Well, they go and play Zynga poker. Well, that's no good. We want them to play Harrah's poker, or we want them to play something of ours. We want them to play our slot machines. IGT wants people to play IGT games online. So IGT goes out and spends $500 million on Double Down so that they can establish their foothold on the online gambling or online casual gaming world. What happens, too, when mobile gambling happens? What happens if I can gamble right now on my iPhone? I can be betting $10. I'm not listening to Jim Perkins from Corum Group. I'm actually betting $10 on every blackjack hand here and making money or losing money. Huge phenomena, huge amounts of money to be spent or to be earned. One of the biggest things, and I see a real big trend in valuation in terms of getting customers loyal to your brand. How do I get customers to stay with Harrah's? How do I get customers to stay with Wynn, Bally's, World Poker Tour, Zynga Poker? What's that magic? Have any of you guys got that magic to stay, to get those customers to stay with that brand? What is it? Incentives? Rewards? Bonuses? Well, we've done that in our video games. We know how to create those incentives. We know how to keep people stuck to our video games. That's an amazing thing. These guys don't know how to do that. They have no idea how to keep people glued to their brand after they leave the casino floor. That's a real opportunity for developers out there to build products for loyalty, incentive programs, better content, better variations on poker. There's a lot of things that. Here's an interesting thing. There's a lot of things that you cannot do on the casino floor to change Texas Hold'em because of government regulations, because of the math involved and the odds for the casino and all that. There's no rules for Texas Hold'em on your tablet online. Nobody's regulating what that game is. You can play casually. You can set up whatever rules you need. You can add side bets. You can do all that. You can create new variations on any of those games, given that that you can prove that there is some reasoning behind the math behind the thing, behind the game. It is very important when you're thinking about these new games in terms of gambling and others that your game may be actually a gambling game, and then you'll have to prove that the math is right and what are the odds of that guy winning $10 on a $10 bet? What are the odds on them hitting the number in roulette, and so on and so forth? But in a casual gaming world, it's wide open. Do not go out to your buyers until you know who all those buyers could potentially be. And don't go out to them until your documents are ready. Because you don't want to be scrambling and have Zynga and Big Fish and Google and Microsoft at your doorstep and you have none of the documents ready and they all want to buy you. You want to have your executive summary ready, you want to have your financial memorandum ready, and then you'll be in a much better position to negotiate with them. You want to do a simultaneous contact with the buyers. You don't want to deal with one buyer at a time. You want to deal with multiple buyers at one time. You want to keep that frenzy going for the bidding on your company. At that point, there's going to be a level of discovery where you're dealing with the top 5 buyers. You'll be doing presentations to them. You'll be traveling around the country to make sure that they know who you are. You meet them face to face. You understand what their process is in terms of buying a company, what approvals they need to go through, and so on. There's also the negotiation process, very, very strenuous and intense, but you'll need a professional to help you go through that process. You do not want to be negotiating with your future boss. It's very important that you have somebody there as an intermediary to help buffer that negotiation process with the buyer. Because if you're negotiating with your future boss and there's ill feeling or there's something emotional that happened there and you have to live with him or her for the next 2 years, it's going to be a rough 2 years. Due diligence, again, have all your due diligence done before you go to the market, or at least while you're preparing for a letter of intent. Make sure all of those documents are clean, that you've got your contracts with your suppliers, you've got contracts with your developers, you've got contracts with employees. Employment agreements are very, very, very important to the buyer, and so on. Make sure they're all in place at the point where you're going to an LOI, because they're going to start doing due diligence, and that's where the work can get pretty intense. The closing, you're going to have an LOI. When the LOI comes in, you're going to be only dealing with that company that gave you the letter of intent. You tell all the other buyers that you're in a no-shop period and that your company is not for sale during this period of time until you evaluate the letter of intent or the offer on your company. Now, if you do not complete that LOI and go to a closing, then you can go back out to those buyers and say, okay, we didn't come to an agreement with that buyer. We're, again, on the market, and please make your best offer. If you do, you get that LOI is agreed upon, and you go to closing, the due diligence is fine, you close the deal, and the deal is done. And then, very likely, you're going to be a part of the company that's acquiring you. So that integration process should be decided ahead of time. You need to plan ahead for how I'm going to fit into that company. Who are the critical employees? Are they moving me all to Finland? Are they moving me to New York? What happens? Make sure that all happens, because if you haven't decided ahead of time, they're going to do what they want, and that may not be pleasant. So decide that integration process ahead of time. I'll go through this quickly, but you're going to have between 20 and 300 candidates for buyers. You'll have up to 1,000 communications with potential buyers, emails, phone calls, conference calls, visits. All of those should be handled by an advisor. You should not be taking away from your business to negotiate or handle every email or handle every phone call. Have an intermediary, have a professional like the Corum Group help you to make those communications happen on a regular and simultaneous basis. You'll have between 10 and 30 expressions of interest, and we'll probably put up to 15 NDAs in place with potential buyers. At that point, they're going to see a lot of information on your company, stuff that's very confidential. What's important here, again, and I'll hit on it again, is you're dealing with the CEO at the buyer. That CEO knows what they need for their company. Okay, he has integrity, and he knows that there's a large amount of confidential information going back and forth, and it's a serious negotiation. You'll have up to 8 qualified parties bidding on the company, or qualified buyers that are possible buyers of the company, and then up to 3 offers. Value destroyers, confidentiality issues are a big problem, or have been a big problem in the past. It's important that not only a small number of people, only people that are critical to knowing what's going on in terms of the sale of your company knows about what's going on with the company. You don't need to tell the whole company that you're selling the company. Otherwise, you'll never sell the company. You'll be busy answering questions. People will be worried about their future, so on and so forth. So keep it as tight as you can. There have been incidences of theft of technology, loss of staff. You're not going to hand over a list of employees with their qualifications just to any buyer or to any candidate as a buyer. A lot of companies are out there to poach your employees, and there's a lot of value in your employees. Biggest deal killers. Dealing only with one buyer. That is the biggest deal killer of all. If you're only dealing with one buyer, they can take forever to buy your company, and they can pay whatever they want for your company. You need to be dealing with multiple buyers. Make sure that your shareholders, make sure that your partners are on the same page. You need to be dealing with the CEO. You need to research your buyers. You need to know who they are. Again, that's very important. Do as much due diligence on them as you can to understand their process and who they are, if they have the money to buy your company, and if they really are the right company to live with over the next 2 years. Understand their process and their models for business. One of the biggest deal killers is not knowing really what the value of your company is. It's important before we go into the process of negotiating with a buyer, how much is the company worth? What is the minimum that I'm going to sell this company for? Now, in the video game business, as I've said before, it's all over the map. It's crazy valuations. But there's got to be something there. There's got to be a key point of valuation that you want to settle on and that you expect from buyers. If we get more, great, everybody's happy. But it's important to know what that number is. We don't disclose to any buyers what we think that number is. We let them set that number. But we need to know among ourselves as professionals and you as the seller what that number really could be. Due diligence, make sure that due diligence is done ahead of time. Qualify the buyer properly. Do they have the ability to pay? Are they really that interested? And very important in this part of this process is leave your ego and greed and arrogance at home. It doesn't do any good. I've seen people that got offers for $20 million for their company. They thought they were going to get $10 million. All of a sudden now the price is $30 million. They think, oh, somebody's willing to pay $20 million. I'm sure they'll pay $30 million. No, they're not. They know how much they're going to pay for your company. Don't let your greed or arrogance get in the way. We look at something called optimal outcome. That's the maximum value for your company, but it also takes in a minimization of risk and liability, reducing your taxes, structuring the best employment agreements and non-competes, and making sure there's the proper integration in your company. It's not necessarily the best price because it could cost you in terms of tax liability, could cost you in other ways. You want to make sure that the whole deal is to your satisfaction, is that optimal outcome. Benefits of using professionals, I think it's very, very important. Make sure they have a model in place. Make sure they have a research department in place that can do the research on the buyers. Make sure that you get market feedback. You're going to get a lot of feedback from buyers on what your company is about, how much it's worth, what you're doing right, what other companies are doing right, what other companies are doing, what other competitors of yours are doing right and wrong. You're going to get a lot of feedback, regardless of whether you sell that company or not. This is an advertisement for Corum Group. I obviously believe that we do a great job in putting things together, but make sure that your M&A advisor is centered on your industry. We are experts in software and technology. We only do software and technology deals. I specialize in video games. I've been in the video games business for 22 years. We know the business. Make sure your advisor only represents the sell side, represents you only, not the buyer and you, just you. I have a friend that's going through this process, started it 2 years ago. The advisor, his advisor, is representing the buyer and the seller. There's a reason it's going on for 2 years. Nobody can agree to anything. It's a crazy process. Again, avoid that conflict. Make sure the senior staff is involved, not junior people. Typically what will happen is if you have a firm approach you and say, we'll help you sell your company, you'll spend the next 6 months teaching that company, the junior people in that company, what your company actually does. You don't need that. You need an advisor that knows what your company does right now. We can evaluate whether or not, within a week or 2 weeks, as you asked earlier, whether or not your company is ready for sale. We're not going to take any of your money until we know you're ready for sale or not. And if you're not, we can help you get ready for that sale. Or get ready or prepare or build your business during that time, and hopefully we'll earn your business to build that company and sell it. And going down the list here, make sure it's overseas, that there's overseas coverage. Make sure we have, that the professional has industry contacts at the highest level. Make sure they're respected, that they have global search capability, and they have a great track record for success. So just in summary here, and I'll wrap it up, and then we'll get on to our buyer and seller panel, but games M&A, record activity and growth. You guys are in the best industry possible for M&A. Best industry possible for wealth and really realizing your dreams in terms of selling your company. Bar none. I've seen them all, and we couldn't be in a better position. Social and mobile M&A will be the next big thing, I think, because it just has universal, worldwide appeal. There will be competitive and complementary consolidation in the business. We're going to see deals that we never thought would happen. We're going to see people buying other companies buying other companies that we never thought there'd be a match, but underneath they were planning all along that they were going to buy Big Fish, or they were going to buy Zynga, or they were going to buy Zynga could buy Electronic Arts, or whatever. I think there's going to be a massive amount of consolidation due to the competitiveness of the industry worldwide. Gambling and games, worldwide phenomena. We've just touched the surface. I really think that only 5%, maybe less, of the revenues that have potential are in gambling and gaming, because of the laws that will change and the dynamics of how we gamble online and with our mobile devices. There's worldwide buyers. There's always worldwide buyers, and this is a great example. Having Casual Connect here in Singapore is a huge breakthrough. I think it's fantastic because we are a worldwide community of video gamers. We always have been, but bringing us together and actually being able to do deals, make sales and buys and partnerships worldwide is coming together in mergers and acquisitions. Your buyer probably is going to be not in the same country that you're in. Make sure, no matter what you do, that you get a professional involved to get the most for your company. Make sure that you do that. Any questions? Pretty easy, huh?
Sheila, you've gotten the opportunity to be part of any of the gambling, social deals.
There's a number of deals going on right now that, yeah, I can't talk about.
Anything that's closed and something?
Can't talk about yet. But I am very familiar with the companies that are making acquisitions in that space and what their motives are in doing that. I know the executives at Zynga and IGT and Big Fish and all the rest of them. They're
It just seems like the speed of it happening, it's almost like they're, like, the independents bringing the games to market, and typically it's harder to manage the process. They're happening so rapidly, the bidding more rapidly.
That's a really good observation. That's a really good observation. You look at a traditional tech M&A process can take up to 9 months. In the video game business, we don't have 9 months. We may have 8 weeks, 6 weeks. We do those deals. We've done deals in 6 weeks. We've done deals in 4 weeks. We can do those deals. It's just an accelerated process. Part of the success in doing that is preparing ahead of time. Get those documents ready. Get somebody, get us or a real professional to do your executive summary and your financial memorandum, your projections, the structure of your company. Get that done ahead of time, because when they hit hard, and that's a really good point. You want 6 weeks. If you've only got 6 weeks, you want to be ready. I know that OMG Pop was ready. They had professionals involved as investors in their company. They had their act together, and when they hit the mother lode in terms of draw something, they were ready to sell their company, and that's why that deal got done so quickly. So get ready, prepare for your. It's not too early to prepare. If you're considering, again, I'll say, if you're growing and things are good, that's the time to sell your company. So get ready by preparing to sell your company ahead of that. Yes. Is it a bubble? The question is the gaming industry or the social gaming industry? Both. In a bubble. I think we've got a long way to go. I think we've only scratched the surface in terms of valuations in terms of growth into things like serious games, like Margaret talked about this morning, into other spaces. There's a lot of different industries that are looking at gaming as a way to incent their customer to stay with them. There's a lot of social aspects to gaming that haven't been touched yet. So I think we're just on the verge of creating some real value. So I expect it to continue for a few years. I don't think, we never dreamed about Facebook 6 years ago, 7 years ago, or maybe Facebook. We didn't dream about Zynga. We didn't know about Zynga 7 years ago. We didn't know about the iPhone 7 years ago, did we? We didn't know what the capabilities of these devices were. So there's just a huge amount of innovation going on in terms of technology, processors, communication, mobility, and all of that. And games leads the way in that. So I don't think it's a bubble. I think it will continue to go very strong. Yeah. Back there? Oh. The question is it better to get angel investors first? If you need angel investors to grow, yes, get angels investors in there to grow your company. I have had angel investors in all of my companies, whether it be small amount, $100,000, $200,000, up to $5 million, $6 million, $10 million. If it's required to grow, then do it. Don't lose control of your company. Don't lose control of your IP. Make sure you have a very clear-cut road to that investment and the eventual sale of your company. In the back?
Thank you. Your group is based out of Washington. So
Yeah.
we're an Asian company. So is the process done remotely? Like we just emailing or just getting conference calls, or do you actually send people to get the process?
It's a good question. The question is, the process as a company in Asia, do we do that process remotely, or are we going to come to Asia to go through that process? In every case, what we do is we start the process with an initial planning meeting, and that happens in Seattle. And we get our research people, our writers, our CEOs, ex-CEOs, all in one room with you for a day to understand your business. At that point, then we can do it remotely, and we do the executive summary, financial memorandum, the initial letter, PowerPoints, and all that. We can prepare those remotely, but I would fully expect that there's going to be on-site visits. I mean, if we're dealing with you, I definitely would be here once or twice at least, and then you would be visiting with me potential buyers to do face-to-face meetings. We have offices throughout the world. We are hoping to set up representatives here as well to be on site. But in the meantime, in terms of the video game space, that's my region. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. No, the fee structure, the question is, what's your fee structure? Is it different for every company? Well, what we do is we look at your company and we do an initial analysis of marketability and value and how much we think the company's worth in the marketplace. We do that for free. We do an initial evaluation of whether or not you're ready to go to market to be sold. If it comes back that, and we do that for free. If it comes back that we think you're ready to be sold and you want to sell your company, then we go into a retainer, and it's a flat fee for everybody. It's the same price. It doesn't matter if you're a $300 million company or a $5 million company. There's a flat fee involved for 6 months, and then it goes right down to a small flat fee. It represents about a third of our costs. We'll spend about $150,000 getting your company ready to go to market, preparing the documents, going to find the buyers, researching the buyers, and get ready to go to market. We earn our money. We make money when you sell your company. When, if, how you sell your company. So if you sell your company for cash, we get a percentage of that cash. If you sell your company for stock and cash, we get a percentage of each, so on. And I can go into the specifics with you individually, but again, it's a pretty minor retainer fee, and then there's a percentage of the sale. Yes.
When do we contact you? Just say you have a company running for about 36 months.
Yeah.
And you have some revenue.
Yeah.
And you want to sell for about 20 million USD. So
Yeah.
when do we contact you? As fast as possible or some way?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Yeah. If you're in that range, yeah, definitely. If are you growing?
And now, not yet.
Okay. But if you're growing, if you see growth, you know, and you're in that range, you know, it's great.
What number of revenue you should have?
It's hard to say. I've seen companies that have no revenue sell for tens of millions of dollars. You know, I've seen companies with $10 million in revenue sell for $10 million. You know, because they're in the services industry. They don't have any IP, and they're really in the services industry. But if you're generating revenue, you have customers. Let's take a look. It doesn't cost you anything. It's worthwhile to just take a look and see if it's time to go to market. We're not going to force you to go to market because we only make money when you make money.
I think we're running here.
Okay. If you want the materials that I've got here in terms of our M&A tech report, any other materials, I'll send them to you directly. Please email me at jimp@corumgroup.com or leave me your business card up here. I encourage you to leave your card.